Yeah, still morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm heading up to Montour Preserve yet again. I want to see if I can get some more of the owl. So I have decided, after the other day when I got a bunch of pictures of the owl, especially with it being a fledgling, I've decided to delay posting both of these videos just on the off chance that I get to see him again today. But I'm definitely delay posting the first one, only because I don't want a bunch of people at the owl. So I've been posting on social media as well pictures of the owl, but I have not posted locations, and I will not disclose locations ahead of time. I will wait a little bit before, saying anything and letting anybody know where it was, just because I don't want a lot of people there. It's not that I'm stingy, it's more I don't want it stressed out. Because when I was there the other day, it probably already was stressed out because there was a red-tailed hawk that was coming close to it, and I could hear it screeching for its parents. So I'm just because between that and also dealing with a large group of people, I just don't want a lot of people there. So with that being said, we'll see you guys on the road. I might hit up the visitor center real quick just to see if there's anything worthwhile there, because they had the feeders down the other day, so I'm sure they're probably still down. If they're up, well, then that's just a bonus. If they're down, well, then we're going to hit the Goose Woods again today as well. I might check out the Hummingbird Trail to see if there's any flowers or anything like that coming up. That's just a little quick short trail. I think that's only like 2/10 or 3/10 of a mile. That's a real small one. Goose Woods actually is short too. I think that's like 0.83 miles to do the whole loop. So total distance on that trail with the extra part to go see the owl is maybe a mile. So it's only a little over a mile I'll be doing for all of that. I am trying not to be out super late, only because, number one, I have all those photos from Thursday to work on, plus what I'm going to have today. And number two, it's already like in the 70s, even though it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. But it's already in the 70s, so it is very, very like warm and humid. It actually feels more like it's an early summer day. It does not feel like it's early to mid-spring. So there are storms coming, so I have a feeling that there's going to be some pretty hefty storms coming today. With that being said, I might do a storm vlog as well. If I do, look out for those. That will be released immediately. That one I won't waste time, delay posting or anything like that, because I won't need to. So with that being said, let's hit the road and see what we can find today. We'll see you guys there. a little differently today. I had to quick go to the bathroom, so I went in visitor center first to see if the feeders were back up yet, and they are not, so I'm not even gonna bother trying to check that out. Gotta look and see what the policies are as far as animals go, because there's a lady and a daughter walking a dog around here, and I'm pretty sure that there's no dogs, not even service dogs, are not allowed, but I could be wrong on that. I'm sure that this sign will tell me. Service dogs is allowed, you know, it is what it is, because they do have the service dog thing on it, so. Let's see. Yep, service dogs is allowed, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so no pets except service dogs, which, I get it. Service dogs should be allowed. But at the same time, if you're going to allow service dogs, you might as well allow all dogs then at that point. But service dogs are trained, you know, to stay with their owner, all that kind of good stuff. Not really so much to run around. There's a big difference between a service dog and Princess and Mateo. So this trail is the Hummingbird Trail. I'm taking this one mostly because I just want to see if there's any kind of birds, flowers, stuff like that on this trail. Tell you what, it's really warm outside today. I didn't think it was going to be this warm, but that's okay. Got some flowers there. This tree is budding like crazy. Actually, everything is budding around here. A lot of like these smaller trees have leaves on them already. That's definitely not 45 miles an hour. It's Easter weekend. I guess they'll find out if a cop pulls them over. Even though I haven't seen any. Alright. Let's see if I can get some photos of these flowers on this tree. Maybe a couple of those. And then we'll move down the trail. So this trail is very, very short. This trail is actually handicap accessible too. This trail I think is like 0.3 miles. So it'll only take me just a few minutes. Even with stopping like this to take photos, it's still going to be 20 minutes max with stoppage. So, all right, I'm going to get a couple photos and I'll be right back. Okay. Got some photos, and of course, as soon as I picked up the camera, started taking photos, the wind decided it was going to pick up, so that was fun. I'm sure half the photos are blurry now. Although, oh, never mind, they're not going to be blurry. I used burst mode on those photos. Burst mode takes each photo at 1 millisecond. What if I get that butterfly flying? That would be cool. I'm going to try it. Maybe. Depends on how... No, it's flying too fast. And it went too far in that short amount of time. I'm not going to chase after a butterfly, just get a couple photos. And that sun's almost hot. That's exactly why I'm out here today anyhow. Look at the weather forecast. Weather forecast says thunderstorms and dreary, dark day. But when you actually look at the weather and see the blue sky right there and there, oh, and also there, and a little bit of clouds over that way mixed with blue sky. Now, I did look at the model system before coming out because I'm not stupid. So I did look at the model system and it does show storms hitting like 2, 3 o'clock. So I do have, it's 11:41, so I do have like 2 hours to get out of here before this storm hits. Because there are storms coming, but they're not coming until later in the day. So, with that being said, there's a couple purple flowers down here. I'm going to get a couple photos of those. I might get a couple of those dandelion flowers. And then there's a butterfly down there that I might try to get something. So, let's keep moving on. All right. That's done. Man, I'll tell you what, I didn't realize how good this 70 to 300 lens is with up close stuff. Here, a blue jay. All right. Okay, why was that squirrel going that fast? Squirrel was hauling ass too. He's up here. Now staring at me. Wish he'd look back through that little spot there. It'd be so neat to get a picture of the squirrel in that V up there. Oh, he's still there. Yeah. Of course, now I hear people. And a chainsaw? That's over in the one trail. Sounds like that's coming from the environmental study trail. All right, I guess that squirrel's not going to cooperate with me. Kurt, I feel like I'm at Wildwood. I'm starting to bake out here. Ooh, that didn't sound good. I wonder what the tire screeching was. All right. So yes, right down here's the end of the trail already. All 3 clips are only like 10 minutes. So it took me 10 minutes with taking photos. Maybe 11 or 12. All right, let's head down to Goose Woods now. Put this away for now until I get down to the trail, because this is the end right here. Whew, man, that sun's hot. All right, back to the regularly scheduled programming. Oh wow, they already fixed the bridge. That was super fast. Well, maybe. I don't know how long the bridge was like that. But looks good. Looks like they did a good job with fixing it. Hi. I ain't going down there, I know that. We're going down there very quickly with how muddy that is. It looks like people already were sliding too. That wind feels nice. Normally I can't stand when it's super windy. Oh wow. Covered in leaves. back away a little bit. It's awesome. Can't believe how good this camera is with basically macro shots is what they is what they're equaling out to be. Somebody on a megaphone. Okay, so minus the people at the visitor center that were in the restricted area walking where they're not supposed to be. Everybody here has been very quiet and respectful today. Thank God. There's actually 3 people right up here on the trail, but they can barely even hear them. I'm going to stop recording for respect. Now I know why the 3 people that were there were so quiet. They're bird watching. They just let me know the pileated is here again today. It's down by the sugar shack. We're gonna head there next. Because I'm thinking more than likely there's nobody else here. Or if there is, most people are very, very quiet today, I'm noticing. And now I know why. It's hard to get birds out here. All right, let's take a walk down here. I'm gonna expedite a little bit. I want more pileated. What am I digging for now? Maybe the watch is finally correctly displaying my exercise time. I'm probably not. It was showing the other day I had like 6,000 steps and only like 2 minutes of exercise time. I'm like, yeah, okay. How does 3 miles not count as more than 2 or 3 minutes of exercise time? I hear a lot of birds, but I don't really see anything worthwhile for me to stop and get photos of. Ooh, we just ran in the woods right here. It might have been a chipmunk. See it? Okay. Let's move on. Today is a whole different vibe. I'm surprised that text went through, Kurt. Whatever he sent me. look at all the flowers. You see the red-headed. That just flew. Sugar Shack's right over there. Which is where I was told the bird is. Start looking and listening. I don't hear it. I did just hear a chicken. Wish I knew where he was. This looks like a good spot. Yeah, let's do that here. Okay. So, there is a new lens for the OM1. And it is by a brand called Retropia. I'm going to do an unboxing here real quick. But this is what it is. what it is a repurposed lens from a recycled disposable camera. All right. What is up, everybody? We are here in the field at Montour Preserve. And join me today for an unboxing. I'm currently at the Sugar Shack. That's what this building is. They harvest sugar maple syrup around these trees in like February. But it's a little warm for that this time of year. It's a little late in the season for it. But anyways, today I am going to unbox this Retropia Micro Four Thirds lens for the OM1. So what this is this is actually really cool. So what it is it's a little lens. It's literally only like this thick. It's actually made out of a repurposed camera lens from a disposable camera, which is pretty neat. It is a fixed aperture f11. So here it is. Let me just quick take it out of the baggie. Really should have carried the tripod with me. Okay. Forgot it's windy. I'll throw that in my pocket. All right. So it just actually just goes right on like a normal lens does. There is a little notch right here that lines up with the red dot here. And then you just tighten it on. Not really much special with it. So the whole point in it is to take basically like old classic, you know, the normal graininess you get out of most throwaway disposable cameras. Except it's, you know, a little bit more sustainable as far as you can use it again and again and again, and it's repurposed from an old throwaway camera. It is available on Retropia's website. It is, I believe it's $49.99, and they do have it available for most popular lens mounts, with the exception of F-mount for Nikon, but that's because this lens is geared more towards higher-end photography and photographers. It's not really geared towards like the low and mid-grade Nikon cameras. It's more towards mirrorless and full frame. So we're going to snap a couple photos and see what we get, see how it looks. It did come with some presets. I'm having problems getting the presets. It does not give me the option to just download them like it's supposed to. I've reached out, and we'll see if we get somewhere with that. So let's snap a couple photos, and I will show them at the end here. As I'm walking around today, I'm going to take some photos with this lens just to show you guys how it looks. So it should give like a grainy look, kind of almost like the 70s and 80s kind of deal. But I also have my own presets that I'm going to throw on. I have a catalog of probably about 20 to 30,000 presets that I use at times. I mostly use my custom ones that I created myself, but I do have other ones for stuff like this, special occasions, stuff like that. But for general use, I do have my own custom ones that I designed myself. So let's take a couple pictures here and roll the photo montage. All right. So I'm still here at the Sugar Shack. I have not heard the pileated at all. But I did notice over on this wood pile, there was a phoebe there with some straw in its mouth. And I did notice where it went. I'm going to try not to disturb the nest very much, but because I don't want to irritate them and have them come after me. But it's this nest right here. I'm not getting any closer. I'm not going to look and see if there's eggs in it. I don't want to make them mad, because I'm sure they're close by. I do, however, want to see. Oh, I saw a yellow flower over here. I really wish I could find that pileated today. There's a yellow flower there. There's a little nest over here too. I don't know if it's an active one or not. Let's see. Not yet. There's nothing in it. All right. I think I'm going to sit here for a few minutes and see if anything comes in. See if I hear the pileated by chance. Alright, is it pileated? Let's move on. That sucks. Trying to get Kurt to come here. Problem is, no dogs are allowed, except service animals, as you saw earlier. And he goes, well, what if I just bring them anyhow? I'm like, no. If he's going to bring them, he can bring them, but I'm not going to be with him. I have good rapport with everybody here at Mark, so no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to condone that. Not happening. Ooh, some trees out there with some flowers. So the good news is, did get the Phoebe a couple times, got a couple trees and other things. So this wasn't a total bust today. But now time is of the essence, because it's now 12:30. And I noticed I'm getting times where it's more cloudy than it is sunny now. Or when I first started, it was very, very sunny and very hot under that sun, which the sun is still very warm. And as you can see, we are still getting some patches where it's sunny, but it's not quite as often. I think I'm going to use the retropia lens on this right here too. So speaking of that, I just realized that in the clip that I'm going to include in this vlog too, I did the retropia lens unboxing. I did say, you know, roll the photo montage. Well, the vlog format is intro in the car or wherever, drive here, then film whatever I'm going to film, talk about how the day went, drive home, then photo montage. That's still the format that this is going to be today. So even though I said in the last clip or two, I forget how many clips I've done now, I don't remember, but I did say, you know, roll the photo montage. That'll be at the end of this, like normal. So I'm going to quick switch lenses because it's too much to try to hold this plus switch lenses. Although this lens is super tiny. I absolutely adore this little lens. I did get to see the photos that I just took, and they are fantastic. Definitely not the normal photos you're used to seeing from me. Usually they're crisp, clean, they're very polished. These are not, but that's kind of the point, is to have them look more retro. So with that being said, I'm going to walk up to this tree and see if I can snap a couple photos of that bridge with that lens. And I might also shoot down that way too. So with that being said, I will be back in a few minutes. By then, hopefully I can get a better understanding on what the weather's doing too, because now it's really sunny. I have to look and see if I have some phone service that I can try to get the Weather Channel app pulled up. See how the radar looks. All right, I'll be back. All right, let's move along. I got some more photos. I might try and get the Sugar Shack with the bridge next. I can't help but laugh. Kurt texted me asking me if I knew where his stuff was. And I'm like, no. And now I get a text message of what he was looking for. He was looking for a plate for his one tripod. Okay. Looks like they replaced some boards here too. It's got me questioning whether it was like that on Thursday or not now. Man, there's some holes from a woodpecker. All right, let's keep moving on. I want to try to see the owl before I possibly get rained on. Must have some kind of service because I'm getting text messages from Kurt. See if I can get a shot with the bridge and the Sugar Shack that I can use the Retropia lens again. Yeah, I think I'll be able to. Yep. Storm Prediction Center. Oh, great. Scattered severe storms possible in your area within the next 24 hours. Yeah, I already knew that. Scattered. Not widespread, not guaranteed. All right. Well, I don't see anybody up on that hill today. So I'm wondering if either A, there's nobody here to see the owl, or B, nobody knows where the owl is. Which, if it's the second one, good. If it's the first one, that sucks. But I'm going to make the trek up and check it anyhow. Yeah, see, I I don't like the framing of that picture. You can see the creek and everything, but there's too many trees in the way. I wish it was a little bit more open. Oh well. We're not going to film. I mean, we're not going to take photos of that with the Retropia. I wanted to, but I don't like the angles I have. Or lack of angles, I should say. Just saw a carpenter bee flying. Where'd it go? There's a little flower right here I want to get a photo of. Holy wind. Got some photos of the stuff at the ferry hut here, quick. I think I just heard an owl. There's still nobody up there. Okay. I said it's one of two things. It's not there, or there's nobody coming to see it. Which, I'm okay with the second one. Ooh. Got little white flowers there. Is there an auction going on? Okay. Just a red-headed woodpecker. I want those people to see me going off trail. Alright, stop filming. Right. So the owl was still there today, but in a different spot. And actually in a better spot to be able to see it too. He or she is beautiful. Okay, I'm far enough down that it'd be difficult to get its exact spot. It's in a different spot from where it was 2 days ago anyhow. So. First I was a little concerned because of it started calling to its parents. And I'm like, that's not good. But then I realized that it was calling to its parents because there was a hawk, not because of me. Because once the hawk flew away, it didn't care and it stopped calling immediately. So it saw the hawk as more of a threat than me, fortunately. Which, that would be correct. Alright. Yeah. I'm gonna come down here to this bench and swap batteries. Might use the Retropia lens here too, this pond. Oh, frogs are out. I gotta be checking the edges for frogs now. All right, let's take a seat, swap batteries. Also might give an opportunity for the frogs to come back out too. That would be nice. I don't know how well of an angle that's going to be, but why not while I swap batteries. I guess we'll see if I need to trim that clip or not. Couldn't tell if my leg was in the shot or not. If it was, I'm just going to trim it. If it wasn't, well, I'm going to leave it in, because it would have given a nice overlook of this pond here. So I'm going to quick swap lenses and get some Retropia shots of this pond, and then move on. It's 1 o'clock, so I got a little under an hour before the storms supposedly roll in. The good thing is I'll definitely be done within the hour. Ooh, almost got him. Almost got him. So I've been running Merlin as I'm walking around here. Ooh. Ooh, little dragonfly. keep getting hits on northern flickers. It sucks, all the frogs are hiding. The turtles are out there again. A big one over there. Still got 0 frogs. A little bit ago, there was also an eastern towhee too that I was getting. It was coming up on the bird ID. Those I do have photos of, but not many. So the people that decided they were going to walk their dog right across the front of the bird watch earlier, they had their dog on here. I don't remember if I was filming or not, but it starts barking. It's like, okay, that's clearly not a service animal. More turtles down here. Hopefully I can get some without them taking off. Wish those dragonflies would land, that'd be cool. They just did. Some of them are taking off. See, some of the turtles got the memo that I'm harmless, some didn't. A bunch of turtles right out there. I don't know what that was, but something bigger hopped in. Wish these dragonflies would fly still enough that I could get some photos of them midair. That'd be awesome. They just don't. One of the last things is down in here, a red squirrel lives. Let's see if he's in here today or not. Looks like I'm leaving a good timing. Looks like a whole family of people coming. Though I don't hear them, so that's good. All right. There's that sun again. Just baking. Ooh, butterfly. Alright. Be the end of that. See you guys in the car. Up to 87 degrees. That's why it felt like, you know, Wildwood Park with Kurt. It is really, really warm today. Alright. Okay, that was that. I did get to see the owl yet again. I did take another clip of it with the OM1 because everything else I have, you know, I mean, I could have done it with the iPhone too, but the OM1 has, I think, a little bit better quality video than what the iPhone does even. A little bit better stabilization because that's got two different kinds of stabilization. It's got in-body stabilization and it also has lens stabilization. So having the two different types, it makes for a real nice, very smooth video even at, you know, that was 1200 millimeters. Yeah. The effective range was 1200 millimeters because of it was on my 75 to 300, but it's micro four thirds, so you double the effective range. And then I also had the teleconverter that's built into the camera turned on too. So that's another double. So you're doubling the 300 to 600, and then you're doubling the 600 to 12. So that's where we're at with that. I cannot wait for the other lens that's coming. That one there'll be a whole unboxing as well. It's a beast. It's an absolute beast. It's well above anything I've ever had DSLR wise. The highest range that I've had before was 400 millimeters. This is above that, without factoring in micro four thirds, teleconverters, all that kind of stuff. It's above that. So to give you an idea what kind of range we're talking here, it's going to be big. With that being said, today was a good day. It was a little warm, but still good either way. With that being said, let's hit the road. We'll see you guys on the next one.